Okay, I think we can maybe start. Good evening, everyone, and also good afternoon, good morning to those in the audience who are joining us from other areas of the world. We're really delighted to have you with us tonight. My name is Federica Sasso, and I'm a program coordinator at the Racing Center, and I'm specifically working right now on a new initiative that we've been developing, which is focused on enhancing Christian safety here in the Holy Land. I will have a chance to introduce this project later. Right now, I just want to say a word maybe about the format of our event, which is a webinar, meaning that participants will only be able to see our panelists and not other members of the audience, but you can use the chat box to leave your questions if you like to participate in the conversation. We will firstly have an exchange, a conversation with our guests. And as the evening progresses, we will open up and we will be able maybe to take some of the questions and answer them. For those who are new to our webinars and maybe don't know the Racing Center well, I just would like to introduce our organization briefly. We are an interreligious peace-building organization based here in Jerusalem. The Racing Center was founded in 2006, and today we are a leading organization in the field of interreligious education and encounter. We are a diverse Israeli-Palestinian staff composed of Jews, Christians, and Muslims, and we engage with our activities about 10,000 beneficiaries and participants every year. Our mission is to build the desire and capacity of Israelis and Palestinians to create truly shared societies for all groups. And we work to achieve this by teaching skills of inclusivity within the Israeli education system. And then we engage Jews and Arabs in mixed spaces as the city of Ramle, the Hebrew University, and more. So our topic for tonight, we titled it The Increasing Hostilities Towards Christians in the Holy Land, Voices from the Field. And we called it specifically Voices from the Field because, as many of you most likely already know, over the last months, Christian communities in Jerusalem and other areas of the Holy Land have been experiencing an increasing harassment. And especially since the beginning of 2023, actually really the beginning of January of this year, we have seen a stunning rise in the number of attacks, and the nature of the attacks has been more egregious and more severe. So we really wanted to look at what is happening, and we thought that it is important to address this issue from two perspectives. On one hand, we really want to hear from Christian communities and understand how this situation has been challenging for them in their daily life, in challenging their space, their activities, and their sense of belonging. So our guest, Mr. Wadie Abu Nassar, will help us understand what are the new elements in the picture, what are we seeing, what's been happening in the last years, and especially in the last months since the beginning of the year. Then we want also to look at what this phenomena is actually telling us about the Jewish Israeli society. What is it telling us about the trends, maybe changes within the society? And Hana Bendcowsky, who's the director of our program JCJCR, will help us look at that. So now I'm just going straight to introduce our guests. I will introduce them both, and then we will start with Mr. Abu Nassar. So Mr. Abu Nassar is the co-founder of the Forum of the Holy Land Christians. He holds an MA in political science from Tel Aviv University and was a lecturer at Tel Aviv University and the Open University. He has over 30 years of experience consulting organizations and individuals on Israeli-Palestinian issues, and was the media coordinator for events like Pope Benedict XVI pilgrimage to the Holy Land and the Papal Jubilee back in 2000. And since 2012 till 2022, he was the director of the media committee of the Bishops' Conference of the Holy Land. Hana Bendcowsky is the program director of the Jerusalem Center for Jewish-Christian Relations at the Racing Center for Education and Dialogue. She holds an MA degree in comparative religions from the Hebrew University and has 27 years of practical experience in interfaith activities in Israel and abroad. She teaches in varied institutions, from colleges to academic programs, Christian seminaries, post and pre-military programs, IDF, governmental office, and more. She's involved in many of the center's activities, including our dialogue programs. She produces educational materials, consulting, and she does advocacy work. Hana is a professional tour educator in Jerusalem, leading study tours in the Christian Quarter here in the Old City. Her expertise is the Christian communities in Israel and Jewish-Christian relations in the Israeli context. So I'm giving the floor to Mr. Abu Nassar, who is going to set the scene for us.
Well, thank you very much. And I really appreciate the work of Rosing Center. And I use the opportunity to remember the founder, the late Daniel Rosing contribution to dialogue among the various faiths in the Holy Land. And of course, I would like to thank Hana and all the effort that you are doing. Second, I would like to say that unfortunately, Christians in Israel, and not only in Israel-ruled areas, are facing nowadays uneasy realities. And when I'm saying nowadays, I say that especially under this current radical right-wing government. However, we have to highlight that under Israel in general, Israel being a Jewish state, it means that the non-Jews are less equal. And being the vast majority of the Palestinian Christians in Israel are Palestinians, it is automatically a challenge for the Christians. So one could talk for hours about that, especially about the open question of two Christian villages which were demolished in northern Israel, Ikrit and Biram, with a promise to bring them back. And until now, this promise is not kept. But I would like to focus, this evening mainly on attacks and harassments facing Christians. And to say that, at least how I see things, I don't see the problem mainly with those who are committing the attacks. Because we believe that in every country, there are some troublemakers. Our main problem as Christians is with the state, because we are disappointed from the authorities, whether the police or the political authorities, and sometimes with the Israeli mass media and with the Israeli religious authorities, especially Jewish religious authorities. With the police, many times we have the impression that the police do not work unless it is pressed to work. And I believe this is not normal. The police have to do its work without being pressed, without being asked to do its work. The police, if there is a problem, it has to act without being asked and demanded repeatedly. And I can give many examples of attacks in which the police even didn't arrive to the scene. Another point with the police is that many times they expect us to bring the suspects, to bring the evidence, as if we have to work as private detectives. It is a challenge, it is the work of the police. And I'm asking always, why if an Arab attack Jew, you know how to find him? But if it is the opposite, you have challenges. So the second problem is with the Israeli political leadership. Nowadays, the only person at the political echelon who is really taking things seriously is mainly President Herzog, and slightly the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, probably because it is about image. But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu didn't hear about the attacks on Christians. So ironically, he heard about the guy who was up to torch the Torah book in Sweden, but he didn't hear about the torching of the Quran. So this selective hearing at the Prime Minister's office, and the fact that so far we didn't get one line of condemnation to attacks on Christians by the Prime Minister's office or the other Israeli governmental bodies, especially Interior Ministry, Police Minister, it is quite annoying. The third problem is we believe that there is an educational problem here, because we are talking about a phenomenon. It is not one incident here or one incident there. It seems that there are some people who educate their followers to hate others, mainly Christians, but not only Christians. We see that unfortunately the country nowadays is practically in a kind of flames. I'm really praying that this country will be relaxed and things will be under control. But I believe that the Christians feel to be the most to suffer for two main reasons. First, the Christians are the most underrepresented community politically. In the Knesset, there is only one baptized Knesset member who is a communist, Aida Tuma. I respect her, she's a very good lady, but she doesn't have Christian agenda. So practically the Christians are almost do not have real representation politically at top Israeli echelons in the parliament. On the other hand, being so small community, which is less than 2%, it is also its representation in various ministries is on decline. One could talk for hours about this. Now, the fourth point that I'm a little bit concerned is the Israeli media. The Israeli media, of course, we have few friends here and there, but I believe that it should not be about friends who care for Christians, who will be nice, like Yossi Eli in Channel 13, who is interested in what's happening in the Christians. I believe that there is no sufficient coverage to challenges facing the Christian community in the Israeli mainstream press. And many times when I used to be the chairman of the media committee for the Catholic bishops, I used to provide material to push, to explain, etc. And the outcome was very minimal, if at all. And this is a big challenge. Now, I wish we are talking only about attacks here and attacks there. I would like to share with you that nowadays, just nowadays, 2 days ago, the school directors, we have in Israel 47 Christian schools, and they are suffering from systematic discrimination by the Ministry of Education. And the lawyer of the schools, Mr. Farid Jubran, sent a letter with details about this to the Minister of Education just 2 days ago. So of course, this is a fresh letter, but I would like to tell you in 2015, our schools went on about a month of strike, and the church leaders sent a letter then to Prime Minister Netanyahu asking for half an hour meeting to explain about the problem. Until today, the answer didn't come. So furthermore, only one prime minister in Israel's history, Ehud Olmert, invited church leaders to a meeting. At the top Israeli echelons, only there is one annual reception by the president of the state to church leaders. There is no real dialogue and for sure no real respect to the Christian community. And then many people in the Israeli top echelons say, oh, why you are in good terms with the Palestinians, with the Jordanians? First, we are Palestinians, but second, because they know how to respect us. And third, in Palestine, in Jordan, there are problems, but there are addresses. In Israel, we have almost no address to talk to at top echelons. Of course, there are some nice officials in the Ministry of Interior. I have to thank Mr. Cesar Marji for his efforts. But at the end of the day, these officials, their impact on the decision-making is very limited. So to come up and summarize things, I believe that there are challenges. But again, I always say mea culpa. It's our sin. I don't like only to blame others. We as some lay Christians, we got organized recently. We created a forum of some tens of lay persons, and we are trying to reflect how to do things differently in the positive sense, how to highlight the principle of citizen. Many times Israeli officials say, oh, you are in a better conditions than in Syria or elsewhere. Maybe they are right, but I insist first that Israel identify itself as a democracy. So the comparison has to be done to other democracies. And Israel in terms of relationship to the minorities, it is the worst democracy that I know about. Second, I'm not asking for privileges. We are not in the Ottoman era. I want to be treated as citizen, not more, not less. I don't want to have a special treatment as a Christian, but I don't want to be second-class citizen. So therefore, as a group of Christian laity, we are trying to reflect how to advocate, whether locally, internationally, in order to highlight this theme that we want to be treated as equal citizens in the state of Israel, which is our state. We are partners here, we are not guests. So therefore, this is our vision, and I would stop here. And of course, I will be more than happy to answer questions at a later stage.
Thank you, Mr. Abu Nassar. I will just pass it on to Hana, and then we can have the conversation start.
Okay, thank you very much, Federica. And it's an honor to be in this panel together with Wadie, who's a good friend of the Rossing Center since it was established 20 years ago by late Daniel Rossing. I would like to divide my presentation in two parts. The first to give some context, and then to answer maybe what happened now. Maybe that would answer some of the issues that we're going to continue to discuss later on. And I will have 6 points in each part of my something about the context. So we deal a lot with Jewish-Christian relations here at the Rossing Center. We do that for 20 years. And I think one of the things I've realized is that we are a society of minority with the mentality of minority, and we became a majority. And we still kind of holding to the mentality of minority, and we don't realize, we as Jews, we don't realize the responsibility that comes with being majority. And we still think of ourselves as the minority. And that's something to take into consideration when we think about Jewish-Christian relations here. The way Jews treat Christians here is connected to the history, or what we think we learn in history, because that's usually the basic knowledge that most Israelis have about Christianity. So I'm not, although the churches, many of the churches in the West, kind of changed their attitude toward Jews and Judaism, we haven't started a process of healing. If you want to read more about it, I recommend the book of Dr. Karma Ben Yochanan, Jacob's younger brother, that was just published in English as well. She wrote her PhD about the attitude of Jews toward Christians after post-Vatican II. And she presented the fact that Jews haven't changed their attitude after the church has made the process of changing their attitude toward Christianity. And Israel as a state, since its day of established, was considering how to relate to Christians. So on one hand, there was a fear and maybe antagonism because of the history. But on the other hand, and that's going to be very relevant to what I want to say about the situation today, is that Israel as a state didn't want to get in trouble with the rest of the world. So many of the decisions that Israel made in regard to Christian was in a way to keep good relationship with the Christian world, with the Western world, with Europe. So many laws or decisions were kind of minimized or were more gentle, as if, and in order to not to get anyone upset. And that was the policy for many, many years. Again, if you want to read more about that, there's the book of Amnon Ramon that was published, Christian and Christianity in the Land, in the State of the Jews, who talks exactly about that. So in many ways, the state and the people who developed the policy toward Christians, official policy, were very sensitive not to get in trouble with the Christian world. And we also have to take into consideration that in Israel, we have the holiest place, the Christian world. And that's something that the state always take into consideration, and also the society. We depend on tourism. There are a lot of people involved in tourism. So that's also something to relate to when we think about the way Jews relate to Christians here in the Holy Land. Most of Israelis have very little knowledge of Christianity. I would say there's a lot of ideological ignorance because of the history. So we don't really get to learn about Christianity. And you don't hear very clear statement from leaders, religious leaders, or social leaders who talk about Christianity and about the attitude toward Christians and other faith, except for some exceptionals. I can think of a couple of rabbis who were very much involved in interfaith, but most of the religious leaders will not say anything about that. So people don't really know. And at the same time, I have to admit that we see increasing curiosity and interest in learning about Christianity, because in the last couple of years, people are more exposed to Christianity, not through history book only, but also through traveling around the world, through television, through lectures. And so we experience, even in our organization, we experience a growing interest in Christianity. So you see two different things. On one hand, there's ideological ignorance. On the other hand, there's curiosity. And at the same time, and as a policy, the state was always sensitive when it comes to Christian, although there was always a fear and some antagonism, but there's also some respect because of the Christian world around us. But harassment toward Christian is not a new phenomena. And I was just going over the website, the internet, I was Googling Daniel Rossing and spitting, and I found a couple of articles that were written after the organization was established, relating exactly to the same problem. In 2004, in 2009, actually in 2009, there was an incident when some ultra-Orthodox Jews spitted over Armenian seminarians who were studying in Jerusalem, and these Armenian young people just got upset and started to beat this ultra-Orthodox guy who ended up being a bit injured, and the police caught the Armenian students and brought them to the police station and released them only after intervention of the president and the chief rabbi, the Ashkenazi chief rabbi, and the Foreign Affairs Office. And they actually wanted, the state actually wanted to deport them back to Armenia, and unless their intervention, they couldn't stay here and continue their studies. And in that article from 2009, so we're talking about 14 years ago, Rabbi David Rosen, who's very much involved in interfaith dialogue, is quoted as saying, if after such an incident, they would flood the area with policemen and people would understand that if they do something like that, they cannot just get by, you wouldn't have similar attack. People would hesitate. But if you don't do that, then people think, okay, why not to spit again? So it's not a new thing. Lately, Cardinal Pier Battista Pizzaballa was quoted in an article in Ynet saying that when he came here in 1990, he was already told that there's a problem with spitting here in the Holy Land. So this is not a new problem. And my second part of the presentation is what now? Why we are so worried about it now? Why it's again in the media? Why this phenomenon get attention? And again, I would like to mark 6 points. First, we sense that there is increasing number of incidents. It's a gut feeling. We haven't accumulated into numbers, and that's why there are a couple of initiatives now to try to monitor it and try to collect the information. And we're going to talk more about it later on. But we have the feeling that something is going on, that there's an increasing number of incidents. We as the Rossing Center, we as the Israeli Jews who are involved and work in the dialogue and work with Christians, we feel that there's an increasing number. We also notice that it's a continuous situation of neglection. And if you neglect a problem, it doesn't disappear. It's just getting worse. And just to give you some example to the worsening situation. So there are more graffitis, but now with threatening death to the Christian, death to Arabs, death to Armenian, corruption of vandalism against property, desecration of cemetery. The Protestant cemetery was desecrated. Mount Zion 10 years ago, it was desecrated again in the beginning of this year. The person who entered the church and smashed the statue of Jesus, all kind of stones and bottles being thrown into monasteries, physical attack on tourists. Tourists started to wonder if it's safe for them to come here. Now, I would say, obviously, it's safe, but if they heard the story of some tourists that were attacked last July by people at the Jewish Quarter, maybe they hesitate if it's safe for them to come. A very aggressive demonstration again in front of an archaeological site in the old city where a Pentecostal gathering was taking place. In that archaeological site, they were renting it out for evangelical and Pentecostal group to celebrate for at least 23 years since the place was open. This year, for the first time, there was a demonstration in the presence of rabbis and the deputy mayor against these Pentecostals who were celebrating them and more. So there's more incidents and more, and we find them more difficult and hard situation. There's more documentation, more visual documentation. People take pictures, people shouldn't, everyone has now cameras, and we can see that the people who attack are not just from the margin of the society, but they're actually not just, ultra-Orthodox or crazy people, but also it seem to be like normative national Orthodox nationalists or people like that, spitting and attacking. We, as Wadie said, we don't see any reaction of the police, of the government, of the mayor, and even if the police catch someone, the judges release them. Only after some social pressure, media pressure, we could hear reaction of the chief rabbi, of the mayor, the minister of foreign affairs condemn it, but we don't see like clear condemning the situation. And I would say that it's not just that people act more, but also there's kind of a political atmosphere of negative sentiment to anyone who is not Jewish. There are politicians who allow themselves to speak freely about pushing out anyone who is not Jewish, Palestinians and Christians. This fear that the state had in the past of, no, we don't want to get in trouble with the Christian world, we don't want to upset anyone in the Christian world. It seems like they don't care. The policy is now that we don't care. We're going to do whatever we want. We're going to say whatever we want. And if people would condemn the state of Israel for being racist or nationalist, we don't mind. And that sentiment that we see now was not there back in the time. And I would just conclude with, I think, what is the good news, and that there are many initiatives of social or civil society organization of people who care and say, no, we cannot allow it. A lot of individuals, organization who want to deal with this phenomena, to stop it, to help the Christian, to help ourselves, to be more safe and secure society for visitors and for the people who live here, to make our society more inclusive to everyone who live here. And it's also being expressed in the very good, I would say, very good media cover that we see lately in the Israeli media, especially if it's Channel 13 or also Haaretz and other news, Ynet, that give more floor to presenting the problem and sharing them and allowing the Christian to present their challenges. So I try to put things in the context, in the general context. It's not a new problem. It's an old problem. Jewish-Christian relations, it's part of the challenges of the state of Israel, and it's quite different from Jewish-Christian relations in other places. But I definitely see that there is a change in the last couple of months, in the last year. Is it a switch? It's I wouldn't say that one moment there was a change, but I would say the deterioration of a neglection or result of a neglection of the Christians here in the Holy Land.
Thank you, Hana. I actually will take it from the last point that you make and ask you, Wadie, if you do feel the difference in terms of communities. What are the differences? Because as Hana was saying, this is not a new issue. There's a level of intensity, and we heard many declarations from the heads of the churches. There have been many joint declarations in many occasions in the last 7 months, but not only. So I would like to hear also from the perspective of the grassroots Christian communities, what has been changing? Do you feel that daily life or access to sites, or just if you can give us a description of what are the new concerns? You mentioned before that there's a general intention to highlight the need of a principle of citizenships, and these are like high level goals, but like on the level of the daily life, what's changed for the communities, what is the sensation, what's the feeling of how the situation is going. And also I wanted to ask you if from your perspective and talking with the different representatives of different Christian communities in the Holy Land, you feel that there's a consistent difference if we speak about the situation in Jerusalem and if we speak, for example, of Haifa or mixed cities. We would really love to hear about that.
Well, again, there are different kinds of changes. The first change, which is more significant, and is the fact that there is a radical right-wing government in Israel. And I believe all Israelis are feeling the difference. You don't need me every Saturday evening to see the difference in the streets. But what I'm trying to say that for us, there is a kind of, as Hana said, there is a decline in the, or if you wish, there is an increase in the negligence. And once the state, for instance, in 1949, when the state demolished the two Catholic villages of Ikrit and Bir'am, they kept the churches because they fear what the Vatican would say, what the Christians would say, how things would look like. But okay, the homes are less important. Although for me, the homes are not less important than the churches. I believe if this government, the current government, would do the same act, it will destroy also the churches. They wouldn't care. So as Hana said, the other change that we are witnessing is the fact, as I said, that we almost have no address at top Israeli echelons. Once we used to have some addresses, some people who care. Under the previous government, the fact that there was an Arab party in the coalition, the fact that it was a kind of center-right government, some ministers were a little bit, receptive to ideas. There were some merit ministers who were aware of some concerns of the Christian community. Nowadays, it vanished. The other point that I would like to highlight is, as I said, that nowadays we have a great difficulty when we come to talk about addressing the challenges facing Christians, because the state has so many challenges and there are other issues on the, I'm finding many times a challenge with many journalists, whether locally or internationally. Oh, they say, oh, okay, we understand your problem, but we are overloaded with other issues. So many times there is a kind of marginalization, if you wish, to issues related to the challenges facing the Christian presence in Israel, including some kind of major incidents. Third, to answer your question, look, again, the easiest thing I always say to complain. But nowadays I'm very grateful that there are really many efforts, and I have to highlight that there are also many people who are expressing sympathy with the Christians, whether Jews from Israel or Jews from the diaspora. I'm telling you, many times I'm getting messages when I publish on an incident here or there. I'm getting many sympathetic message from all over the world, whether Jews or non-Jews alike. But still, I believe that we have to try to do some more reflection on how, if not to solve the problem, to minimize it. And we see that the main focus now is in Jerusalem, probably because Jerusalem is hosting large number of Jewish yeshivas. And again, the vast majority of those we have no problem with, but it is enough to have 1% who are troublemakers. It's too much. You see, in Haifa, it is a bit different. By the way, in Haifa, we have only recently one incident related to Stella Maris. And according to my investigation, it is related to one person, he called Shaykh Khazan. He is associated with the Hasidic group of Rabbi Eliezer Berland. By the way, he is a convicted rapist. It's not me, it is the Israeli court who said that. Anyhow, so, but Even Berland Group sent me a message that it is not us who is harassing, who is making problems. It's Shai and few of his followers. And luckily in Haifa, we had a good dialogue with the police, with the mayor. We worked jointly in order to reduce this phenomenon. And in this occasion, I have also to thank tens, if not hundreds, of Christian youth who came and stayed almost 24/7 around the monastery to make sure that there will be no provocations. But I'm really concerned, again, not from the incidents themselves. I am concerned from three major facts. First, from the whole issue of how the rule of law and law enforcement systems are treating this. Because many times the police fail to find the suspects. And if finding the suspects, many times they have some mental health problems. And I say, okay, if they have mental health problems, they have to be somewhere else, not in the street. But even if they are okay and without the mental health problems, many times the police recommendation to the state prosecution is very, very weak, as if saying, please don't send him to jail. And if there is indictment, the court usually gives very light sentence. So there is no real deterrence. This is problem one. Problem two, we don't feel real solidarity from top echelons. I don't know about any real solidarity visit of senior Israeli official to the attacked places, except the case of Tabgha in 2015, when President Rivlin arrived, but it was the Germans. So the Benedictines, it was the German government, and the German government pressed the Israeli government. And after all, the Israeli authorities, they found one suspect who is in jail. I don't believe that one person did what happened in Tabgha. Anyhow, the third problem is, again, how to explain that this is not only bad to Christians, this is bad to Israel. Because I believe that some of those are training on Christians. The ones who attack Christians will feel immune and will attack others. Just this morning, we had a hate crime in the village of Abu Ghosh to the west of Jerusalem. Again, there are many hate crimes that remained unresolved. According to my records in the last 7 or 8 years, as of 2015, I have some records. I recorded about 78 incidents targeting Christians, and only in 3 cases there were indictments. So most of the cases were registered under unknown. Again, Israel has one of the best security establishments in the world. We know that if there is a will, there is the way. But I have doubts about the will. And this is a bit annoying.
Thank you. I just want to follow up immediately with another question to you. And I want to ask you, you're part of a grassroots initiative. What do you think that Christians, not pointing to the mea culpa attitude, but like to a sense of, elaborating also what's going on and understanding how to collaborate either with the leadership of the churches and among themselves, because also we know that it's not easy for the churches to collaborate, especially I think in Jerusalem, we know that it's complicated to find necessarily like one strategy for everyone that works for everyone. So I wanted to see if there's a conversation going on among, the different elements, among the different churches, not just within the Catholic Church or the Latin Church, Yes. Are there conversations? Do you hear something? Are you, like working especially within the world of the Latin churches? What's going on the ground in that sense?
Well, the good thing and the bad thing in church is that we are advancing many times in turtle speed. But okay, so we are eternal, so we have time. But to make things more serious, I have to say that things are improving, maybe not in the speed that I wish, whether in terms of coordination among the churches, I tell you, when I was a kid, there was no bishops' conference. The bishops' conference was created in the 90s. And in the early 90s, there was no council for all heads of churches. This council was created at the late 90s. So unfortunately, after almost 2,000 years of some internal challenges, we are learning to work closely with each other. I do believe that the rapid of progress is too slow to meet the challenges. This is, by the way, one of the reasons that we decided, a group of laity, with all due respect to the church leadership, we decided not to follow this speed and to have our own rhythm. Furthermore, we do believe that we have to go out from what I call it the Ottoman era. The Ottoman era treated the clergy as community leaders. The clergy role is to be pastors, to preach for, to help us spiritually. The laity has to take its role. Easiest thing is to blame others, to complain. But nowadays we are trying to get organized and to play in a kind of complementary role. Furthermore, we as laity, we are released from the various denominational problems. It means, although I'm a Roman Catholic, but in our group, in the forum, we have people from the various traditional churches working together, because we are not discussing, dogma issues. We are working under the so-called Christian umbrella, and our priority is how to preserve and to strengthen the Christian presence in the Holy Land. You see, but our vision also, unlike some others, we have no interest to have to enter disputes with the clergy. On the contrary, the whole concept is to have some kind of complementary activities, because we believe that the clergy is really overloaded. The clergy has enough challenges. Nowadays, I don't know about any church which doesn't have serious financial challenges. We had the corona, then we had Ukraine, and all these issues affected negatively the budgets of all churches in the Middle East in general, in the Holy Land in specific. So many church leaders are facing some serious challenges. And I really pray for them. I wish them all the best. And I try to help some of those, at least those who are asking for some help. Anyhow, what I'm trying to say is that the laity has to take its role. The easiest thing is to blame others. But I do believe, like issues related to harassment, to incidents targeting Christians, to advocacy, okay, of course, the churches, the establishment could do more. But I believe that the laity has to play and to help and to work closely with the clergy in order to have better results.
Thank you. So I think we should take some of the questions that are coming through the chat, and I will read a couple, and then we will see who feels like answering first. So, for example, we received a question asking, is it one specific group initiating the attacks, Orthodox Jews or other Jews from other denominations, or are the attacks coming from across sectors of the Jewish population, including secular sectors? And are the numbers of people attacking increasing, or is basically the same attackers just going back again and again, creating trouble and initiating the attack? Then someone else is asking, is there a specific office in the Ministry of Religion that deals with Christians in Israel? And another one says, apart from the anti-Christian violence instigated or encouraged by religious political extremists inside and outside the government, do you see any correlation between such incidents and the ongoing disputes between the Israeli authorities and the churches, for example, on tax issues, church-affiliated guest houses and other properties, like also the long-term lease contracts of church-owned land running out? So I don't know.
I will start maybe with some things, and then probably Wadie would add. So I would say that, again, most of the, at least what we see from video footages and what we experience is people that have religious symbols, I would say. Of course, even within the Orthodox Judaism, there's a great diversity, and obviously there are a lot of people who are very respectful and they're fine, but we tend to see people wearing a kippah who usually attack whenever it can be seen, or we can see the tzitzit. But I think it's not the only problem. So I wouldn't say that they're the problem. I think it's the vast majority of people who are silent, who are not doing enough, who maybe don't mind that these kind of things happen, or start to do what about deism? I mean, they say, oh, but after all what the Christian did to us, I mean, it's not so bad. All the reaction, I would say that it's not just the people who spit or just the people who throw the stone, but it's the backup that they think that they have, which is not necessarily just religious. But the people, usually the people who attack, we can say that there are some religious symbols. They're wearing religious symbols. But as Wadie said, it's not just their problem. It's the whole society that have to take responsibility on that. And as Wadie said, one of the problems is that there is the Minister of Interior is responsible for the Christian communities, and Mr. Cesar Magia is the person in charge of the Christian Communities Department within the Department of Religions within the Ministry of Interior. But his ability, I mean, he is quite limited in what he can do. And if in the past, and there's a person in the ministry, Tanya Berg, in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, who very much involved, but she's in the Ministry of the Foreign Affairs. So there are different people who deal with different things, but there's no like one person who's the address for, who can connect and take care of the whole thing, and being the person in charge of these kind of things. So there are a lot of people who involved in certain things, but there's no one address to take care of, that the Christian know that they can just can call them in case something happens. I wouldn't think that the people who attack, and as we said, we're talking about increasing of incidents. I don't think people who attack have any idea what's going on in the dialogue between the churches and the state, maybe not aware of real estate issue or taxation issue. But I would say something that was also mentioned in the chat by one of this about one of the participants, that it is connected to the whole question of what's going on with what's happening to the democracy in Israel. Democracy it's not just means the decision of the majority choice, but democracy means responsibility for minorities. And if people think that democracy means that we choose one group or another, then we can do whatever we want, that's a mistake. Democracy is taking care of minorities, is making sure that human rights are respected, making sure that the rights of citizens, of residents are respected, and they're secure and safe and not being attacked. And it is part of the of democracy. So I would say with the impression that we're losing the democratic elements in our society, and we have to fight to gain them back, I think this is also a reflection of the situation now.
I would like to add just 2 points, about the issue of taxation. In the last years, by the way, in 1993, on December 30th, the Holy See and the State of Israel signed the so-called Fundamental Agreement. And this agreement was supposed to be followed at least by 2 agreements. And until now, these 2 agreements were not concluded yet. At the meantime, which was supposed to take place is that Israel to keep things as is, especially with issue related to taxation. But unfortunately, some Israeli cities like Jerusalem, like Haifa, like Tel Aviv, in the recent years, they posed challenges to some church bodies. And in some cases, I know even that they even, in some municipalities, they even put their hand on some assets of church bodies, and there were some kind of different interventions. Now, I believe the silence of the central Israeli government, I don't know, again, I don't have all the details, but I believe there is essential need that the central government, because the Holy See didn't sign agreement with Haifa or with Tel Aviv or with Jerusalem or with municipality X or Y. The Holy See signed a deal with the state of Israel. So the minimum which is expected that the state of Israel to tell its municipalities, guys, hold on, and I don't see this happening. Maybe there are some efforts. Again, I don't want to blame anybody, but we see the fact that there are, because I believe if there are serious efforts, we wouldn't see these challenges coming. There would be the minimum that I would expect, that there will be a memorandum from the central government to the cities, guys, there is an agreement that has to be respected. I hope that there will be some effort in this regard, especially following the recent visit of Foreign Affairs Minister Eli Cohen to the Vatican last week.
I have a question that was posted that I will ask you, Wadie. And like a listener is asking if you think that the fact that Arab Muslims and Arab Christians both face discrimination, did this bring them together? Did this bring them closer? Or there are still problems also between the two groups?
Well, I don't see really major problems between Christians and Muslims per se. Of course, there are some local challenges here and there, one has to admit. We are not a perfect society. Unfortunately, the Arab society in Israel is suffering from a severe crime rate. And this is, in my humble opinion, and according to available data, it is the highest in the world. If you compare, 125 people killed so far in this year for a community of less than 2 million. It is a record number. And Christians were killed. The vast majority of the killed were Muslims, So, but what I'm trying to say, there are some tensions here and there. There were a few months ago some tensions in Nazareth. Some people did target some Christians, but generally speaking, the relationship between Christians and Muslims are good. And above all, not only Christians and Muslims, even Druze who make military service feel that they are suffering from growing discrimination in recent years, especially under the current Israeli government. We saw what happened recently, not only with the turbines in the Golan Heights, but there is a big problem nowadays about land confiscation with the Druze community in Israel. I have to highlight that the Arab community, although it is being heterogeneous, but it has been treated by the state of Israel, especially in recent years, with growing amount of discrimination. So it contributes to a certain political unification. However, we have to admit that also the Arab political reality inside Israel is suffering from its own internal challenges, splits. There was a one joint Arab list. This Arab list suffered from fragmentation. One could talk for hours, but I believe that religion, at least in the eyes of Christians, is playing less and less role in the political life. By the way, we have to highlight also that in the Christian community, I'm witnessing in recent years very rapid secularization process. For most Christians, I joke, maybe my estimate is about 70% of Christians in Israel are what I call it social Christians. We go to the church during the holidays, mainly to take photos, not necessarily to pray. But who I am to judge others, So anyhow, what I'm feeling is that there is a kind of rapid secularization, which also affects the cohesion of the Christian community.
Thank you, Wadie. I will ask the next question to Hana, because we received a few questions about Christianity being represented in the Jewish education system. So, for example, we received a question asking what can be done to raise the awareness of young Israeli extremists who are attacking Christian figures. Also, what projects, the other question was, again, how can we talk about poor representation, the same, of Christianity in the Palestinian education system? So it's actually a question to both of you. What's happening with that in terms of how Christianity is represented?
So I think it's Christianity in general is underrepresented. It's mentioned in history book, but when you get only the highlights of Jewish history, then you mainly get persecution, expulsion, Inquisition, Crusaders, and Holocaust. So what kind of opinion would you have about Christianity? That goes with the fact that Israelis travel and visit churches and watch Netflix and exposed to Christianity through other medias. But I think there's not only ignorance like many other topics, I think there's more ideological ignorance. I do find that in many places, people are afraid to learn about Christianity because of the history or because they're afraid of any influence of Christianity on their faith or something. What we try to do is to get to people, to educate, and that's part of the Rossing Center work, is to educate people about Christianity in the Holy Land and Christianity in general, in order to kind of compensate for what they don't get in school. There are some places, some schools, some teachers who do dedicate more time to learn that. I can recommend another book that was written about the teaching of Christianity in the Israeli education system by Dr. Orit Ramon and her colleagues. But there's not enough. It's not enough, and therefore our organization and other initiatives of other people are meant to expand the knowledge and expose more Israelis to knowledge through lectures, through tours, but also through the media, through YouTube videos, through websites, to Facebook. And we believe that with knowledge, you reduce the tension, you reduce the hatred, you reduce the animosity, and you build relationship. Of course, this knowledge doesn't get to the people who physically are doing the harassment. I think that someone who go and spit on a church, I mean, he's not going to take a book or open a website and read more about Christianity, not in the stage where he is now, attacking Christians. But again, I think it's the vast silent majority that we have to educate that would delegitimize any act of harassment toward Christian. So we have to delegitimize it so people would hesitate to do that. They would know that they don't have the backup, they don't have the support, they don't have the non-reaction of the society. They would know that people would condemn that and they would feel uncomfortable to repeat that. And that's the kind of people we're trying to outreach, and that's the kind of people we're trying to educate.
Thank you, Hana. I will take a last question and turn it to Wadie, and then maybe me or Hana will answer also the same question, which is, what does it take to stop the attacks? What action is really needed? Concretely, what needs to be done? Wadie, what do you think?
Well, I believe there is a need for 3 parallel actions. First, to talk about it more in the Israeli media, especially in the Jewish ultra-Orthodox media, not only in the mainstream. And we have to encourage rabbis, personalities as high as possible, whether from the government and rabbinical authorities, to condemn these issues clearly. Second, I believe that there is a need for further deterrence, tough treatment to anyone who commit attack or incident, to bring him to justice with no discounts, in order to teach him a good lesson and to teach through him others. Third, I believe also in the need of launching further dialogue. I can tell you, for instance, in the case of Haifa, I was happy that there was a very nice rabbi from Jerusalem area, Rabbi Gottlieb, who made a video condemning the harassment vis-a-vis Stella Maris Monastery in Haifa. And I contacted him to thank him, and he was extremely happy. And he, you know, as a gesture, after I made the first initiative talking to him, of course, he made the first initiative by condemning. Then I made the initiative of contacting him to thank him. Then he came to visit Stella Maris. So I believe that such kind of contacts, again, I come to the concept of mea culpa, and not only myself, I'm now I'm trying to bring it to the community, that again, it is very easy to blame others. We have to learn, you know, my modus operandi, the model is the apostles. The apostles were our ancestors. We are Galileans. They are our grandpas. They didn't have Vatican to help them. They didn't have anybody to help them. They had God in heaven and each other on earth. And they succeeded to make huge changes in human history. So I believe that we as Christians in Israel, we are 10,000 times the apostles in number. But our effectivity is under question mark. We have to make our homeworks, and we believe that things could be made differently. And we do hope also that friends from all over the world, whether Christians or non-Christians, to work jointly, because after all, it is not a Christian problem. It is a problem for all human beings, mainly for Israeli citizens.
I would add, I would divide it also to three, and what can be done. So what Christians here can do, what Christian and Jews around the world can do, and what we as Jews, Israeli Jews can do. So I think first from the Christians, I would ask to complain, to inform. Many of the Christians who were speeded upon or attacked would hesitate to complain, would hesitate to report. So I encourage them to report. If they are citizens of Israel, use your citizen right to report to the police, and to inform those who collect the information, who wants to help about the incidents. Most of the cases when we talk to clergy with Federica, and she will tell you a little bit about our project, the new project, you know, usually the reactions, oh, we don't bother to report because they wouldn't do anything. So no, yes, we have to report, we have to collect the information, we have to collect the data. So Christians have to report. Christians around the world and Jews around the world are encouraged to put pressure, either through media or through their personal connection or through officials, to put pressure on the authorities, the government, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Jewish communities, to encourage, to put pressure, to encourage them to condemn, to react, and to do something. Sometimes some pressure from outside helps even more than just pressure from beneath. And then from Jewish Israeli, I think I would ask to care, to show that they care. I mean, how meaningful was this video that Rabbi Gottlieb did? And there are other rabbis who made short videos, and I think they had a great impact. Even the letter that the chief rabbi, Rabbi Amar, was encouraged to write, with all the problems that the letter had, but still it was encouraging for Christians to see that. So we have to care, we have to learn, we have to find a way to help our society to be more inclusive. So I think if, you know, all these things together can lead to a change. But I also want to share with you, and Federica will say more about it, the new initiative that we have at the Rossing Center, that all part of some other initiatives that that started lately regarding ways of solving the problem. So there are different things that are being done, but maybe Federica, you want to say a bit more about it.
Yes, so as Hana was mentioning, we as a Rossing Center, but not only us, other centers and individuals here in Jerusalem who really do care. We've been talking and thinking about what can be done from within the Israeli Jewish civil society. And what we thought that was needed is, first and foremost, data, accurate data that can prove through reports and media and photos and witnesses everything that can be put together that can show what is the trend in this harassment, which, as we said at the beginning of the evening, is not new. So we are joining forces, creating a database that is going to be a comprehensive collection of this information. But as Racing Center in particular, we have an initiative that goes beyond that, and we aim at contributing to enhancing the safety of Christian communities in Jerusalem, but not only, also in the rest of the country. And the idea is to, as we did tonight, to listen to both sides of the story, if we can call it like that, or like two parts involved in this issue. And on one level, this means for us to listen, to be in touch with the Christian community, to hear what is needed, how they're being challenged, how this is affecting their sense of belonging and safety. So we will survey the Christian communities, and on the other side we will also want to listen to how the Jewish society is changing. So we will survey also perceptions and ideas from within Jewish Israeli society regarding Christian presence. And the idea is for us to establish a monitoring initiative that, through data and qualitative data that we will collect, will come out with annual analytic reports that we will offer as tools for advocacy. So we're really looking forward to collaborating with the churches, to collaborating with civil society, with many stakeholders and allies from within also the civil society here in Israel. And we, want to also create partnerships and alliances. So since it was asked what can be done also from outside of here, there are things that can be done. And first and foremost, education and information are crucial. I'm going to share now like a QR code that is going to allow who is wanting to contribute also with donations, like to support our work. Here it is. I'm sorry for the delay. I hope you can see it. Do you see it?
In a second.
I hope it's visible. No?
No.
Okay. I apologize for this.
The link is in the chat,
No, I see that it's
okay, never mind.
No, I'm sorry. Never mind. I will link it in, I will post it in the chat. The idea is for us to say that at the Racing Center, we're really happy to be in touch also for the audience and the supporters from outside of the Holy Land. And if you haven't done it yet, if you don't receive yet our mailing list, please sign, subscribe, and follow us on social media. We're present on Facebook, we're present on YouTube. This conversation will be posted on our channels, and we will send out the link so that it will be visible and accessible. I think maybe we can wrap up. I don't know if Hana, you want to add something, or
just to thank all the attendees who were with us here this evening. I think it's very encouraging to know that people care about what's happening in the Holy Land, with so many things that's happening in Israel now. Maybe the harassment doesn't seem like a big thing, but it's a huge thing for the Christians here, for the community here, for people who want to promote inclusive society here. We don't want to neglect this problem here, and you're welcome to be part of the solution.
And thank you to our guest, Mr. Abu Nassar. Thank you so much for joining us tonight and provide your point of view, which is so rich and really pans from the point of view of the clergy and the leadership of the churches, but also really what is the experience of Christians across the Holy Land. Thank you so much.
Thank you a lot. And I ask all the participants to pray for us. I keep joking, as more as I see leaders, I believe more in God. So we need more prayers, hoping that God will give our leaders more wisdom and courage to advance what is good for their citizens.
Thank you.
Maybe people also can write their questions in the chat, in the comments in our Facebook page, following the recording, so then we can continue answering the question, because I see more and more interesting questions coming, and I would love to answer some of them. So if you can just post some of them in the comments of the recording at the Facebook page of Rossing Center, then we can follow up the conversation and relate to these questions as well. So yeah, you're welcome to find us in Facebook.
Thank you. Good night and good afternoon. And
all the best. God bless.
Bye.